So my next guest that I want to invite is Sameer. Sameer is actually sitting in Canada at the moment, but he has this amazing project in terms of engaging with schools in South Africa and then seeing how they actually work. So Sameer, it's so exciting to have you on this call. Thank you for sharing more about school with us and informing the audience about what O-School is and how they could engage. So thanks.
Thanks so much for having us, Karen. So we don't see anybody here. How do we know anybody's here, Karen?
They're all on the live stream. Sorry. So it's not cool. Like a normal webinar. No.
Okay, cool. I sort of know I'm talking to somebody.
You can talk to us if you want. You've got a beautiful product. And
okay, I like this guy, Joel. How you doing, man? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice background. Actually, this background is all about us.
Really
100%.
Say again.
So one day you'll really meet.
And one day we'll really meet. Okay, look, I'm looking forward to it. Nice to meet you. Yeah, thanks for having me, Karen. Thanks for having me. So I just thought I'd tell a couple of quick stories in a good Sir Ken Robinson fashion. I don't know if we know, but this guy is no longer around. It's been fascinating. Sir Ken Robinson wrote a couple of good books, and it seemed like he did a podcast like a couple of weeks before he passed away, which is incredible. But he was a big proponent for this idea of the arts being applied in all our programs across school. And I think what you realize is that somebody can spend a lifetime talking about this stuff, just like we're having all these amazing conversations in these calls, I imagine. And it can take forever before it actually becomes a part of our school system. But I do think that for the first time, some things are shifting. You know, I think what we are understanding is that technology is always applied to humans, and humans can only be learnt about in the humanities. And I think this is an important topic in South Africa because, I don't know, it just always felt for me. I grew up in Pretoria. I went to school there, and it always just felt for me that if somebody's child got into an arts program at UCT and they discuss it at dinner, it's always like, oh wow, you know, that's nice. You know, if somebody says they got into engineering, it's like, oh, okay, you really did make it this time. You know, there's this feeling that the only reason you got into arts is because you didn't get into engineering. That's the only reason you're pursuing that path. And that kind of messes up our thinking, I think, a lot around how we perceive what good quality education is in South Africa. But I think what we've learned, and Karen, we've been exposed to this as well, is how companies now, the tech companies of our world, are saying, listen, you know, maybe there's life beyond STEM. STEM is like the basic oxygen. This is how we operate and move through our world. Of course, we all need to breathe. We all need to learn how to code. But I think that what Google is saying from their research is far beyond that is, okay, cool. We've learned these tools. How do we think about the way we apply them? That's your critical thinking, analytical thinking, all that World Economic Forum list of thinking styles. And then it's those very basic human things at the top, right? Like empathy and compassion and need to work together and the need to be together, which I think we're starting to realize is causing things to fall apart right now. Because with all this tech that we have, we're so desperate to be together. In New York, people are having parties and they're willing to pay $100,000 fine to be caught for having such parties because they just want to see each other. Zoom and Instagram and Facebook is just not enough. People are willing to pay heavy fines all over North America just to be caught hanging out with others. Unbelievable what it's like to shake someone's hand or give somebody a hug, just say hi. Despite these social distance measures, people are curious about what that feels like again. But from a practical standpoint, I think some other interesting things are happening. If we're talking about why the arts matters in schools, I think what we're realizing is that as technology improves, people don't improve so much, right? Right now, well, recently I just watched this documentary called Heal, where they said that cancer seems to be the new flu, right? Why does it seem like everybody has cancer these days? And along with the mental spiral comes a wave of health issues, of which people can either choose to pursue these very technical routes, so biokinetics and genomes and accessing the absolute exact spot in your body where the cancer is actually forming from in order to do radiation. These options are starting to become available. But it's actually turning out that people are choosing alternative healthcare measures. They want to go down this mental health route. They want to go down a well-being route. They want to go down going to retreats, being in meditations. So what does that mean economically? It means that hundreds of billions of dollars in healthcare are now starting to shift to alternative healthcare. And in alternative healthcare, we'll probably have people who need to be far more intuitively or emotionally or psychologically inclined than they would need to be technologically inclined. You need to be in touch with a different part of yourself to be a service provider in that industry. And I think there are an increasing amount of gaps as far as us needing people to provide these services. I don't know if you've ever looked for a therapist, if anybody's listening to this. It's just super hard. It's hard to find enough people to do this work, which is why it's so expensive and so inaccessible. So I think that another thing is that, we talk about how technology is replacing people's jobs, but the truth is that money never really gets replaced. It just gets redistributed, right? So as companies save money from stopping, from not hiring people to do these jobs they were always doing, whether it's in accounting or coding or sales, that just means they have extra money in the bank. And what's important to understand from this is that it's never good for companies to keep money in the bank. Shareholders don't like that. They are asked to continue spending that money, to find new ways or new areas to spend that money. And once tech has taken care of all the basics, the only option these companies have left is to hire more creatives, more designers, more artists to help them reimagine new futures, to help them tell new stories so that they can reinvest that money into new ideas. In a sense, I believe the future is about people not coming in to show why they fit a job description, but telling the company what the job description should be. Because companies will have more money and resources to hire, but very little understanding around who to hire and why to hire, because they have no sense around how to build these futures. At the same time, these futures are built off trends. These trends are created on platforms like Instagram. In a sense, they are asking young people to say, well, tell us what's next. Tell us what really matters in the world and help us to land into those futures. And so probably while we maybe look at some of these platforms as being highly disruptive, which they are mentally in many ways, they are also the new platforms for expression, right? If we think about all these hundreds of hours of YouTube, hundreds of billions of hours of YouTube and video streaming and music streaming and podcast streaming, all good things alongside some of the things that are not so good. These are all created by people like some social media strategists posted on LinkedIn. These are created by people that are not just good with tech, but also happen to be great anthropologists, sociologists, psychologists. These are people who understand human behavior and they're able to talk about this human story. And so if we do not educate our children in South Africa to understand what these things mean, there is no compulsory liberal arts education as there is in North America, where everybody has to do some basic arts classes and humanities classes. So if we do not give them the opportunity to explore these ideas, we don't allow them to participate in the world at large. Now, Karen, I don't know if my history is correct, but from what I understand is that our system of education in South Africa is borrowed from the British system. That's the first thing, which is this: it's highly specialized. You're either an accountant or you're an artist. You can't be both. You gotta be one or the other. And the next thing is that, back from colonial times is the idea that maybe people in developing countries did not have to think that much. The thinking would be done by those who were coming to colonize. The only thing that those who were being colonized needed to know was how to execute on good plans, which is why I think the technical skills of South Africans, and Karen, you've told me some good stories about some students. I don't know if it's in Limpopo or where it is, but their math scores are just through the roof. These kids only have like one meal a day, but they're beating every top school in the country. in some of these areas. But yeah, I think as far as STEM is concerned, we probably don't have that many issues. It seems South Africans perform at an extremely high level. But as we start to then participate globally, I think, for the majority of students who want to, or who we want to get a good education, we would say, well, what's happening in the world at large? How can we start to talk about these larger ideas, art, philosophy, design, creative? I also think that these ideas are not reduced to just being taught in one class alongside maths or science, but these conversations can be had in our maths and science classes. And I think we all, as in maybe everybody on this call, educators, teachers, principals, we read all these amazing books, and maybe it's about sharing these ideas that are inspiring for us.
Mm.
And so I think that what we're doing here with O-School, and we invite you to check this out, is we have created a global conversation for high schoolers everywhere, from cities across the world. And being from South Africa, I get to be in this conversation with all of you. I'm a good friend of Karen, and I think we both know a lot about what's happening in South Africa and understand what could be beautiful for young South Africans. I think what is exciting is to say we don't have to ask ourselves what should be the future of a child in Durban or Pietermaritzburg or Paarl or Cape Town. It's no longer what job is my child going to find here. Your child is now participating in a global economy, and they can be a part of almost anything everywhere. And through these future of work programs that we're holding, we want to be able to give South African high schools an edge on what's next. We want to give their students an opportunity to access these global conversations, and to, rather than be in more of these TED Talks like we're in today, probably engage in projects and ideas that actually help them to stretch and use their thinking. And so if you're a teacher, if you're a school principal, if you're a partner, and if you think that this could be useful for your community, we invite you to get in touch with us and to have your students join us in this conversation. If at all, we can invite any of you in this conversation because you just have some special interest in stretching these ideas in your school as well. Actually, Karen, I'm just thinking of this now. Happy to even host a talk for some South African teachers online. Half an hour talk, let's chat about this and see practically, okay, cool, we had this amazing conversation. How does this apply in everyday learning?
Sameer, if I may interject, I had a quiz at your O-School website. It's beautifully put together.
Thank you.
To reiterate to anyone in the audience here, Sameer is a program that connects kids to real-world experienced people from big companies like Google. We've spoken to Harvard professors, and they've got a couple of days of activities lined up. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sameer, to promote the humanity within us.
So there's two sides of the story. One is how do we just learn some very practical skills and tools, all the stuff that the World Economic Forum promotes, whether you're a doctor or whether you're an artist or whether you're a designer, everybody's in business. How do we understand some of that? And whether you're a lawyer or an accountant or a nurse, everybody participates in creativity. So what does that look like in your specific job? And then, of course, the other side of that is, yes, thank you for these amazing skills, but also what does it mean to be human? So that even if I am really successful in anything I do, I don't lose track of myself in this very big story of being alive.
100%. And if I may ask, is part of your end game with what you're building here is to connect young thinkers and people that are, well, kids and students with that direct access to industry thought leaders?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's cool if young people are in a sense also getting to hear about these ideas from people in industry who are working in everyday jobs, who are experiencing these things for themselves, who are using these skills, but who are also building their own emotional intelligence, working on their own struggles, trying to understand how to keep themselves relevant, and we're having very open conversations. So as we say, companies like Google, like Spotify, but maybe also companies that are in healthcare like Revolut and Sick Kids, or in fashion and design, just to understand from these very different perspectives, how are people using this information and how can it be more relatable to young people that actually join these conversations?
So I am going to be pulling up a comment that touched home for me, and I'm going to be speaking at 20 to 5 tonight. But the nutshell of this comment, thank you so much for dropping it in here, is how are we bridging this gap with kids that have just not been afforded this opportunity? And do you think the government is doing enough to equip our teachers and learners? I mean, the government's doing their best, as far as I'm concerned. They really are putting in some measures to make things happen. But I think, especially for education relative to South African circumstances, there is this crazy gap essentially between privileged kids and underprivileged kids. So 20 to 5, I'll be giving a talk on the solution that we built and we've rolled out. And I'd love to be able to engage with you to see how we could give access to not just kids in privileged spaces, but giving kids access to underprivileged spaces, to the likes of some of your featured speakers I see there. It includes a monk from Google, and some really inspirational speakers there. So I'd love to be able to keep in touch with you post this call.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And I should just say right off the bat that all our programs at O-School give about 20% of the students free access to whatever we're doing. And I've already mentioned this to Karen, that if there's anybody on this call that is calling from an institution which is not very highly funded, and would like some of the students to have access to this, we'd be most happy to do that. And please ask them to get in touch.
100%. Okay? We will, audience, if you just heard that from Sameer, please drop your details in the comments or email hello@oschool with your request, and let's see if we can launch a program with you. Teach more kids about the future of work programs. Really, this is an incredible opportunity to really understanding what's happening on the other side of the world, what other people are doing with their passion and creativity in major companies like Google. And if you go check out their website, which is oschool.co, you'll find that they've got some incredible speakers. And I mentioned this already, like a monk at Google. How do you find a monk to pop their details there?
Yeah, he's a good friend of ours. He was just hired to be in the office to walk around and help people relax.
And I wonder if they could quantify what that return on investment would be to, implement someone like that, and how they bring a nice energy to the environment and atmosphere. It probably paid off.
Yeah, it looks like we have a lot to talk about it. Give me a call after this. I'll tell you all about it.
100%. Thank you so much.
Okay, Joe. Karen, thanks so much for having me.
No, thanks, Sameer. I really am looking forward to see how we can grow the O-School initiatives here in South Africa. I think there's some amazing opportunities for the children that you've got lined up. So I really think this is incredible. So thank you so much for hopping in and for sharing from so far away. We really do appreciate it, and hope to see you back here soon.
Thanks, Karen. I appreciate it. See you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
So what an incredible story and opportunity to share. Zadia, I was reading your comment about what the companies are doing. Actually, if we teach students to go onto all these big corporates' websites, lots of them have lots of initiatives. If you look at Google and just look at careers, they've got a whole portal to actually help them. They've got a set of digital tools to help children to prepare them for the future. Microsoft does something similar. Amazon has some amazing products. And so we just need to make children aware that all these companies are actually trying to reach out and help as many different people as possible. So go in and have a look.